Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic which stands one nation
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
justice
justice.
for all. I can't. Is my camera on, Sue? Is that what it is? I'm leaving. I don't know what that was. I was muted and my camera was off. I don't know why that was.
Somebody
Weird. Okay.
Was that me?
Sorry about that. I think it was my fault.
I'm very, very willing to accept the blame for that. Okay, consistent with the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, MGL Chapter 30A, S20 and Regulation 940, CMR 29.10, which allows for the remote participation in certain circumstances under the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law regulations. The Mendon-Upton Regional School Committee will be conducting this meeting with remote participation. Any and all votes will be conducted by roll call. Per usual, this meeting will also be live streamed and recorded. So to start off our agenda tonight, we would need a motion and approval of the agenda. I believe we have an amendment.
Yes,
to
I
our
want to
agenda.
make a motion to amend the agenda and move after student comments, a update on the superintendent search, as well as a discussion about having a vote tonight to move into negotiations with potential candidates.
Second. Okay, roll call vote, all in favor?
Bill Desutter, aye.
Vicki Robinson, aye.
Kirk Brown, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
Motion passes and the agenda is approved with the amended.
Well, I make a motion to approve the amended
Thank
agenda.
you. Second.
So moved.
Trying to shortcut everything. Okay, roll call vote, please, to approve the amended agenda.
Can I make one more amendment real quick? We also, if we can also, we do approve the minutes
Yeah.
of the executive session from December 6th as well.
Yeah, sorry. So do we now need to approve the additional amendment? Yes, so a second for the amendment.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote to approve the amendment to the agenda.
Bill Desutter, aye.
Vicki Robinson, aye. Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Kirk Brown, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
Okay, and the.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda with the two amendments that have been approved.
Second.
Okay, and roll call.
Bill Desutter, aye.
Vicki Robinson, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Kirk Brown, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
We got it.
Okay, so we have approved our agenda for tonight with the two amendments. Okay, we're going to need to approve the minutes from December 6th, 13th, 20th, January 5th, and the executive session notes from December 6th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the agendas for December 6th, 13th, 20th, and January 5th meetings, and the executive session minutes for December 6th.
Second.
And roll call vote.
Bill Desutter, aye.
Vicki Robinson, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Kirk Brown, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
Okay. Minutes have been approved. Moving on to school committee chairperson comments. I'd just like to take a quick second to say a heartfelt thank you to the staff of Mendon-Upton Regional Schools for service to our children in what's been a really trying time. I know with the uptick in COVID numbers, people are working really hard. There are a lot of staff absences, a lot of student absences. I just want to let everybody know that we are aware that this is a very difficult time to be in this profession, and we very much appreciate everything everybody is doing. We will now open to community comments. Before reading the public comment policy, let's see if there's anybody with hands raised.
I see no hands raised as of this time.
Okay, with no hands raised, I'll spare us all reading the policy, and we'll move on to student comments.
All right, so unfortunately, Dia couldn't make it tonight, so I'll also be commenting on her topics. So the first thing I'd like to mention is the Nimoc Spanish Club is having their first meeting tomorrow. It's known as El Club de Español, and it consists of two groups. One group stays at Nimoc to help students who need a little extra help with their Spanish work, but also at Nimoc, that group is called the Yellow Group. You could learn about different cultural activities, different foods, music, and so on. And then the second group, called the Red Group, they take weekly trips to the elementary schools, I think specifically Memorial right now, or they're going to, I should say, where they help and volunteer with their Spanish immersion programs there. I know this is very exciting to me. And there they either, they instruct songs in Spanish to the students, or they just help out with, they just help the teachers. And the second thing is the Misco Mentor Program. So starting this week, the Nimoc Band Council has introduced the Mentor Program, and this involves band students traveling to the middle school, so Misco, to either play with younger students in the band, host individual lessons with their instruments, or just help with band directors. I know I will be participating in that. And then on to Dia's comments. So Inspired Learning Day is coming January 13th, and this is a district-wide thing, not just at Nimoc. And it's really meant to help connect what we're learning in the classroom with the real world. Sometimes there can be a disconnect between that, so that's exciting. And then lastly, there's a book club coming to Nimoc. So the Nimoc Media Center and Taft Public Library are coming together on this one. And their first meeting is on Tuesday, January 25th at 2 p.m. and it's in the gathering room.
Thank you, Michael. I hope Dia's feeling okay. Any questions for our student reps? All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so with our newly amended agenda, we'll move to Superintendent Search Committee updates.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we originally had scheduled for this coming Wednesday to have a day in the district for our two finalist candidates, Dr. Cohen and Ms. Adams as well, Dr. Adams as well. And we found out at the end of last week that Dr. Adams actually taken another job and it was a finalist or the final selection for another superintendent role, of which she's going to be taking. She's in final negotiations there. So she is publicly withdrawn from our process. So what I wanted to discuss and bring up here was the premise of taking a vote tonight to actually forego the day in the district, because just quite bluntly, I think Dr. Cohen has many days in the district, and the people in the district do know her. And I just wanted to say, I think our best and our most prudent course of action would be to enter into negotiations with Dr. Cohen for the role of superintendent, and I wanted to just have that discussion and take that vote here tonight.
I'm in complete agreement. I think, as I said last week, we, as a screening committee, we put forward two candidates that we felt were very strong candidates and had full confidence in. I think the fact that Dr. Adams was selected by another district is a testament to how strong our candidates were. So I think, I don't really. I'm like, Dr. in the district every day. I think certainly I have full confidence, and I'm really excited to move forward with her as our next superintendent.
Yeah, I think it's a very reasonable decision. I wasn't part of the search committee, but I've been reading the outputs, and I think you have two great candidates, and we're fortunate to have one here tonight. And I think the best thing we can do is move on with the process and get into negotiations. And move on.
Agreed.
Sean, any further comment? Don't want
Yeah, I
to leave you
agree.
out, because I can't see you very well.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I agree as well, and I think one of the things that I've been most concerned about was the transparency of this process all along, and making sure that all the constituent groups had a chance to participate in the process, and I think they have, with a lot of the feedback that we've gotten throughout this particular process so far. So I would be in complete agreement with that and move ahead. So we'll need a motion and a roll call vote.
So I make a motion to enter into negotiations for the superintendent role with Dr. Cohen.
Second,
Okay, roll call.
Bill Desotter, aye.
Vicki Lovington, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Eric Brown, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
And motion passes. This would be a great time to switch over to superintendent comments.
Sure, that'd be great. Now, first, it's been a great process to go through. I know I'm in the district every day, but it always gives you a moment to listen, to pause, to reflect on what the work is and what you want to do. So I've appreciated going through that, and definitely admire Dr. Adams too, and happy for her as well. One thing I wanted to say is just that I look forward to the conversation and moving forward, and every day I get up and I district, so I look forward to continuing to do that every day, starting tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So we'll work through that, but thanks again for your confidence and support. So I'm going to dive into we have a lot of agenda items today. And the first one I wanted to do, the first thing I want to do is invite, we have from youth, our Education Foundation, Mendon-Upton Education Foundation. They're going to give a little presentation. We have our president, Kathleen Meckel, and Vice President Jennifer Conrad, and they'll be giving a brief overview of what MUF is all about, its purpose, key fundraisers, impact on our classrooms, and how, and this is the key, how everyone can get involved in this great organization. So we're going to kick it off with them. If you want to come on up to the table.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I'm Kathleen Meckel, president of MUF, the Mendon-Upton Education Foundation. We presented to the school committee before, but not recently, obviously because of the whole COVID situation. So we're honored to be here tonight to share our work. If you go to the next slide. Just a little overview of who we are in case you're not familiar or people are at home are not familiar. So MUF is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We were established in 2005 by a small group of teachers and parents. We are made up of parents, one school committee member, thank you, Sean Nicholson, and our superintendent, who is a non-voting member of the organization, but does attend the majority of our meetings. We meet 6 times a year, and then we have a number of fundraising efforts in normal times that we also conduct. And we actually support all 4 districts in the Mendon-Upton Regional School District. So we don't just work in 1 or 2, we really support all 4 of them. Our goal is to raise money through fundraisers, and we also partner with businesses, individuals, and community members. Then we take that money and we distribute it in the form of grants that teachers, educators, sometimes with parental involvement as well, design, write, and submit to us with the goal of funding creative, innovative, and sustainable programming within the district. Now, this could be in a classroom, it could be across disciplines, it could be across grade levels, and in a number of cases, it's even been across schools. So it really is trying to get teachers, educators, and students to think outside the box. Recently, we partnered with some of the individual school PTOs as well for some of our fundraising efforts. So we're also trying to make connections with other organizations in the district. And that was done through our Harlem Wizards event. Since we started in 2005, we've distributed over $255,000 in grants across all 4 schools. So next slide, please. So what kinds of things do we support? It needs to be innovative, it needs to be sustainable, and it needs to be programming. So we fund innovative and pilot programming. These are things that are not included in the normal operating budget of the district. So this is not something you would normally find within that budget structure. It's not salaries, it's not supplies, unless they're part of that funding, part of that programming process. Without our work, those programs would not happen in the school district. So like I said before, they're encouraged, our programming is encouraging students and teachers to really think outside the box. To your point earlier about the special day that they have coming up across the district for innovation, we're looking to find ways to apply real world knowledge and collaboration to their learning experiences, and to also make it fun in new ways for students. Very often they're pilot programs such as the iPad initiative. As you know now, all the kids have iPads, but we started that many years ago. And the experiences that MUF provides, they follow right alongside the strategic plan, so we make sure that that's aligned. And then we try to allow our educators and students to reimagine education and learning. So we're trying to be that place where they can come to for funding to support those types of initiatives. Okay, next slide. You've probably seen some of our fundraising activities, although not in the past couple of years. The Spooky Run we hold every October under normal circumstances. We do have one scheduled for this coming October, fingers crossed. And then that's a 5K that we run from Nimoc around town. And then we've done a few events with the Harlem Wizards basketball group. The last one we did was right before we shut down. And that one is one that we partnered with both the Memorial Clough and Misco PTOs, all 3. And in that particular event, we actually distributed some of the money we raised to those schools specifically, but that was a special collaboration we decided to hold. Okay, next slide.
Talk about that. Yeah. Hi, I'm Jennifer Conrad. I'm the co-chair of the grants committee, as well as the vice president, and I'm also the parent of a 2021 graduate and a parent of a 2022 graduate coming up. So we've been able to fund several recent grants even with COVID. We've done it on a rolling basis. We really encourage the principals and staff people, if they have a great idea, to bring it to us and see if we can, if it's something that we can fund. So a couple, the 4 that we've done during COVID have been, I'm gonna start with the one at the bottom because that's the oldest one, is the Nimoc Justice Coalition here at Nimoc. They did training with the Anti-Defamation League in order to bring awareness and diversity discussions in a civil, polite way to other students. So what they've done is they've trained a group of students, upperclassmen. They train freshmen coming in, and the goal is to try to branch out into the middle school at some point. And so far it's done very well. Project Lead the Way, which is a 7th grade computer science maker project that was submitted by Dave Quinn. So it's essentially, he's always looking at the entire district, but this was specifically for grade 7, and we funded that about a year ago. The more recent ones are both in Misco this year. Sarah Higgins, who,
Wellness.
What do you call health and wellness? The teacher there. The alcohol impairment goggles are the goggles that simulate what it's like to be, under the influence. And there's also a film that they have, and it's one of the most popular units that she does at Misco. And finally, this one was just the last one, the colorblind glasses for Misco Hill was submitted by the art teacher, John Hansen. This was just literally just yesterday. He sent me a video of students there's a certain percentage of kids every year who are colorblind, and so it affects their, ability to work in art classes. And putting the glasses on and seeing them being able to distinguish colors that they couldn't see before. So despite COVID, we've been able to review and fund grants, but a lot of that's due to the teachers and the staff people and their principals encouraging this, encouraging the application process. So I give them a lot of credit. Some of our past grants, this is, kind of a long list. We're not going to go through every one, but as you can see, they cover these are in all 4 schools, and they cover a huge range of topics. It's not just giving them some piece of technology, although that's a lot of it. We have the Lego murals, was also a John Hanson project they built 3D portraits and paintings in the hallway at Misco. One of my favorites is the 7th grade math bank, and that's when they got a cash register and some inventory in order to run a business within the 7th grade math class, to learn things like accounting and how to conduct inventory. And we also have plenty of elementary ones and Nimoc as well. They're all very well represented through youth.
So I joined MUF in 2008. So it's been a long time. I've been here for 14 years. This has been a passion project of mine. I love it. I believe in it. And I think it's important. But I have one child who's graduated and another one who's about to. So we have a number of people on the board who are in similar situations. And, we think it's important for everyone to be involved at all levels. This is actually the type of organization that you could be involved in from the time your kid enters till the time he or she leaves. This isn't a PTO where you're just there for the 3, 4, 5 years. I love PTOs, but it's limited. This is something that you can be involved with throughout that whole time period and watch the kinds of progress and things that can be made. So we are making an appeal to the community that's listening out there, to those of you on the school committee who may know some people in town. We are looking for new members to help kind of give it some new lifeblood, some new energy, to take it in the direction that it really should go in. So if you have children in the district, you don't have to, you can be on it if you don't, but if you do, especially if they're on the younger side, please consider joining this organization. As I said, it's near and dear to my heart. If you're looking for ways that you can really play a role in your child's education or in the district and the community, this is a great way to kind of help everyone, including the teachers and the staff, to reimagine education and to think outside the box. And so please think about joining this group and help us to carry on the amazing work and the mission that we've really put our heart and soul into. I know Jen's been on this board for quite a while too. And as our children graduate, we really want to see that our successors can take this on and push it to yet another level. Like, this isn't the end where this can go. So I am available at any point. You have our contact information there. If you email that email address, it does come to me. I would be happy to talk to anyone in the community who's interested and wants to learn more. As I said, the commitment is 6 meetings a year, but of course they're the fundraising activities, and you can make it anything you want. It is a really important resource of the district. It is really important, especially in times of budget crisis, that we have these funding mechanisms in place, these partnerships in place. And even with COVID taking place, we don't want to lose any momentum that we've created. So that's my plea. I hope you've learned a little bit of something about MUF. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We can answer them now or later.
Questions? Thank you for your service over the last 14 years.
Thank you for all the information. You say you meet 6 times a year, generally evenings. Is there? Yeah, and it's whatever the board deems is important, right? But it's a minimum of 6 times a year. It's not really too many times.
We've been doing it by Zoom, and it's a 1-hour meeting each time. So it's pretty streamlined, unless you're doing the fundraising activities, but those could be subcommittee type organizations, type of group things. But
You can sign up for as many or as few as those as you have available in your time commitments.
yeah, I mean, if you're on the board of trustees, then you should be attending all of the meetings, and we do ask that you participate in some of the fundraising pieces. The other big chunk here is the grants committee. That's like the meat of what we do, and it's the reason why we do all of this, right? So it's a lot of work. I think just making sure that, you know, you're following up with the teachers and getting the grant applications out there, but it's so worth it.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
lot of fun, and the teachers they do amazing things. They have amazing ideas and ways to implement them. So it doesn't really feel like work.
Right.
You know, it's a great organization to belong to, because it's right within your own community. It's right within your own students, your own kids, and you know, it's very important.
And I think that's a good way to look at it. It's not really work. Like, I wouldn't have been doing this. I have a job already. You know, I wouldn't do another job just to do it. Like, this really is a passion project. So, and I know the others on our committee feel the same way. It's just that we have kids aging out of the district. It's time for others to kind of, to help out. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
One thing I can add to, and you know, my previous districts at work, there's always been different education associations. But now that I've been more engaged this year, but aware of what was going on, I mean, I've been running in those races, you know, we're playing in the basketball games, and been able to see in the classrooms the direct impact that your work does when we say, oh, how'd you get this? What's this? Oh yeah, this is one of the grants that we applied for, and it's sustainable. And so I just really appreciate that. I think the process too for us, you push our thinking, and we want to come forward with the best. We, the teachers in various groups, come forward with the best, grants requests as well to move things forward in the district. So I just can't thank you enough for your time and efforts, and it really does have an impact. Thank you. Well, I wish I could talk about that all night. I am going to give some updates related to COVID. I know I have put it out in the newsletter and in various areas as well, but I just want to give a couple updates just so everyone kind of knows where we're at as of today. So as mentioned before and predicted by the medical experts and anticipated here as well, we are seeing an increase in COVID-19 since the return from vacation. And along with our local boards of health, we expect and hope, based off of kind of projection models that you see out there, that it will peak in the next week or so and hopefully decline by the end of the month. We're hoping that will happen. So a couple of things we hope, in order to be cautious, we just ask that all students and families just self-monitor before, we would be really focused on trying to do the close contact tracing in classrooms and across the board. But really, the numbers are so high that if we all raised our hand, do we know someone who has been impacted by this in the last couple of weeks, we could all probably raise our hand. So please, do that. If you ever have any questions, reach out to your nurses as well. We've had many updates that have come out. I am not an expert in all of the protocols yet, keeping your growth mindset on that, but I'm not yet. But then once I start to get it, something else comes out. But we released, and I put it in the newsletter and over break, there were new protocols released in December by DESE and DPH. And I pulled out some pieces of information in there for families in my newsletter. We also had shared the DESE updated FAQs that just came out within the last week. And we created, I want to thank our nurses for everything they're doing. They also updated some district FAQs. So in the last week, as they've been receiving questions, they're going to continue to take those actual frequently asked questions and add it to that document. Some other things today we actually received notice that the mask mandate has been extended until February 28th from the state, which makes sense. They're not going to, have that January 15th date remain right now. I've received some questions on whether or not we're allowed to go remote at all. And at this point, there's no appetite from the state leadership. If you watch the governor, if you hear any of the announcements that they make, that they are not allowing remote learning this year at any point. If a school, and you may have seen, in the news, if schools are faced with any staffing shortages where they can't safely stay open, then what they do is they work with DESE. There's a hotline that you call and you work through, is it a classroom, a grade level, school, a district kind of issue. And the recommendation as of right now is that they can be considered called snow days, but not kind of a fun snow day like the other day for some, but COVID-related snow days. And that would be added to the end of the school year like a typical snow day to maintain the state required 180 days of instruction. If anything changes with that, of course, I'll bring that forward and let you know. And I mentioned the mask guidelines that just came out today. And actually there were some other updates that just came out about an hour before the meeting today too. They have a new flow chart. I haven't opened it up because I just saw it that they released it, so we can send more information and post that on our website. So a few ways we're trying to communicate out. We do it through the schools. I'll do it through my newsletter, which goes out every few weeks or so. And we also will add those updates to the COVID dashboard page and resource page. I try to wait until we get all the information and then I'll put it on there. So I would say right now, as of today, it's a very fluid situation. We're closely monitoring the data like we always do, and we're making adjustments with a lot of collaboration internally and across buildings as well. So we don't necessarily need to change all of the practices that are taking place, but we are taking some actions. And I'm sure even tomorrow there'll be something new that we might add to this list. Right on the return, all of our students and staff were reminded of the protocols, and they really have been doing a great job in following them. And with the reminders in, the students really, get that. Over break, I don't know if you heard about there were sudden test kits that were available, which is great. Just happened to be in the last few days of break, so that they had a shortfall, supply chain issue, and so we couldn't get 2 kits per staff, and that was across the state. No one could, so we had to split up all the kits. So I had a lot of time. I called the family project. And we split them up, and Cheryl and I were out on that Sunday, and we had about 120 staff members that came in and took the kits then. And then on the next day, we delivered them all to the schools. We also got masks from the state. We delivered those to the schools as well. We've started to shift some of other things that we do, like faculty meetings, or we maybe had them either in a large space in a cafeteria to spread out, or using Zoom. We're just trying to keep our staff feeling comfortable, but also in school. And we're shifting some of our student performances, such as musical, drama, and other events. Some, if we think that students will be impacted because there are so many absences, we don't want them to miss the one concert they're going to have in a year. So we're looking to schedule them off. And athletic games, if you're a family member of an athlete, you would have already received information on this, but they're limiting spectators to family members for this month. And this is pretty consistent in the region, and also even in a lot of youth sports as well that I tend to go to myself. We're moving, we talked about Inspired Learning Day, so we decided, since that was this week with the numbers so high, we are moving that out into February. We're moving some of our meetings with families to remote sessions, so we have kindergarten information nights and our Spanish immersion kindergarten information night. Those are all going to be remote. We're reaching out for any help from the community. Please, if you're available and can help sub and cover. Some of it is just duty coverage, not necessarily a classroom. It's just, there are a lot of people who work together in all of our buildings to make sure that we're operating safely. So the central office, we're popping in, we're helping out whatever we can. Administrators, we're covering, we're managing. But if anyone is just looking to help out in these couple of weeks, we could use that. So that's my little all call for that. Let's see, we have news that came out today. This Saturday, the Board of Health, so this coming Saturday, we'll be hosting a Pfizer booster clinic from 10 to 1 at at Nimoc in the Media Center. And so I just learned about that today, and we'll get more information out about that. But in general, I just want to thank our community for its collective efforts, because it really is taking a full community to help keep our schools open and to help keep one another, safe and healthy. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to change gears out of COVID, but feel free to ask a question after if you want. But I just wanted to also comment on just some great things that we're moving forward with this week. Now that we're back in the second semester time period, we've launched, I know Dave and Joe will talk about it after, a technology planning committee. Our district equity, diversity, inclusion committee met earlier today, and we have a half-day professional development day on Friday. And so that's a half day for students, and that's focused on approaches that we've been talking about all year about better understanding, supporting, and engaging our students. And the range of topics include behavioral support strategies. We're diving into panoramic survey, data analysis. We have Bridges math implementation. We'll see that throughout the year, but we're making really strong connections with some of those implementations, also with our themes around SEL and equity as well. And we have some of our reading specialists working on early literacy interventions, and we have some signs of suicide PD. And there's other things going on, but those are some of the highlights. And Cheryl's done an excellent job in jumping in and coordinating along with the committee a lot of the plans that are coming forward. So those are my general district updates. I don't know if you have any questions related to that before we jump into Jay talking about the Nimoc boiler.
I know there were some issues with some of the masks that were distributed from the state. Did that impact us at all? Or?
Yeah, we got about 3 different notices about it. So by the end, they were not that highest tested, that quality from MIT. Yeah. So it's up to, we did deliver them to all of the staff. If, they choose to use them, they're happy to, they're not required to. But it wasn't the original ones that they thought that were going out.
Is they going to distribute like replacements, or?
They didn't say. Yeah, no, they didn't say that. And we've been having more frequent calls as superintendents with the commissioner on various updates. They kind of addressed, the fact that those weren't the ones that they originally were told that they were, but they didn't say if they
the music programs, chorus and band and music at the lower level, adjusting to some of the increasing concern.
Yeah,
Are we moving back to kind of some of the things they were doing, practices they were doing last year?
No, we haven't made great shifts in what we've done, but they've been really separated in moving the kids as far apart as they can for some of that. But none of they're not reverting back entirely to what the rules were last year, because then that we wouldn't be able to get and do some of those things. But as much as when the weather's not as cold as it will be tomorrow, we keep leave the windows open or go outside and move to larger spaces. So they're doing that.
They're still wearing special masks.
Yeah.
Horn covers.
Yeah.
It's still.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite Jay Byra up to give an overview of a Nimoc boiler bid that he's been talking about.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing tonight? I think Maureen included in the packet the bid results. We went out to bid probably middle of November. Bids were due back on the 22nd of December. We got them in. We spent the week between Christmas and now reviewing them. And we're ready to award the bid to NB Kenny and Company, or NB Kenny Company. The bids range from about $716,000 to a little over $1 million. Quite honestly, the initial cost estimators that the design folks hired to look at the project, they told us that we'd be looking at maybe $1 million to even $1.3 million. So we were thrilled that the bids came in where they did. 2 of the alternates, I don't know if you looked at it carefully, there's 2 alternates to the bid. So we put out the bid with basic design, but what we want is a cast iron condensing boiler. Much more efficient. Cast iron doesn't crack like steel does. That's what we were looking for, but we did that as an add alternate because we were concerned that it was a specific boiler that only one manufacturer makes, and then you put that into a bid, you open yourself up to some, big complaints. So we put it as an alternate. They included that as an alternate. It was actually a deduction in the cost to do that, which is great. The other alternate is to remove the smokestack that you see outside the locker room there, because we won't be using it anymore. We'd like to do both of those and award the bid. The company is, the architects have checked them out, said that they're very confident the company can handle it. We need to get it moving though, because there is, as you know, with everything, difficulty getting parts and materials and stuff. And once they take the old boilers out, although they are required to provide heat if they don't get it done on time, we'd like to have the boilers back in by next fall so we can heat the buildings. And the building, I should say. Any questions?
So which bid are we saying?
I just have it here. The company is NB Kenny. They were the low bid. Basically, the way this works is you kind of have to go with the low bid, unless there's some reason to deny them, and there is no reason to deny them. So
The quality of the work across all the rest of them, the materials, the parts, everything is all the same.
yeah, they have a bid spec, and they all bid on the same thing.
Okay.
And like I said, the key for us here is we really wanted this cast iron condensing boiler because it's much more energy efficient. What we're replacing, I don't know if any of you have ever been down the boiler room. The boiler room now, we have two boilers that are probably the length of that table. Each one is that long with these big, huge metal tubes that we keep having to weld. We're going to replace those two with three that work in succession, but they're much smaller. The three of them are probably going to take up the same amount of space that one boiler takes up right now. The way they work is it's called lead and lag. One will kick on, and the second one will kick on if it's necessary, and they kind of rotate through. I think we're pretty confident this is going to save us some money on gas for starters, but also considering these boilers are probably not going to last more than another year, and that we kind of have to do it.
Once again, how old are the boilers that are in place right now?
How old are they? Original to the building, so they put it in 1997, so they're, 26 years old?
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of trouble with them having to weld them because the steel keeps cracking. And I think I mentioned this. We've talked to the manufacturer who tells us this never happens to our boilers. And then we talk to the people who come and fix it and say we do this all the time. So I guess it depends on who you want to believe on that one. But after 26 years, unfortunately, we're finding that it's time to replace them.
So have we talked to the people that fixed the boiler that we're looking to put in? What do they say they fix?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So the people that maintain the kind of boiler that we now want to put in?
I assume the architects picked this out specifically because of its design. No, I have not talked to anybody and said, what's the track record of these particular boilers?
What kind of warranty or what kind of?
I think it's a 20-year warranty, I think they said, but as you know, with most warranties, it covers certain things, but not everything, right?
Yeah.
It was a longer warranty than any other boiler that we could get. I do remember that discussion during one of our meetings with the architecture firm. I have a high level of confidence in the design team. This is the same design and engineering team that did the work we did at Misco, where we did boilers, windows, and the roof. And I can tell you, with that whole project, we had one change order for the entire thing, and it was a reduction in cost, not an increase in cost. So that means they did their job well. And my experience with other construction projects, like say the high school or Misco renovation or Putnam Memorial, everybody low bids and tries to change order you to death to make their money back. So I like the fact that these guys get their drawings right to start with. They spent a lot of time going over a lot of materials with both Ken and myself, and they've made several site visits to evaluate the situation. So what we need, I mean, if there's other questions, I'm ready to answer them to the best that I can, but we need a vote because I need to send a letter to them so they can start ordering materials.
Any additional questions?
The budgeting for it, where's the money going to come from?
Capital stabilization. We had, if you remember, we had that capital stabilization account that's right now got about 680,000 in it. The rest we're going to have to fund out of local resources, stuff that we have within the budget. So we're looking at having to come up with about $100,000, which I believe we can do without, reasonably okay. Project will be getting done. Probably they're going to start demoing the existing stuff after graduation at the high school, which I believe is going to be January 3rd, 4th. John's nodding his head. They're going to start as soon as that's done.
Actually, it's a good segue. We're going to talk about
That's why I'm here. I'm here to support you. So as soon as that graduation is done, they're gonna demo the old building, which means they're gonna kind of set up some staging areas outside the boiler room now, which is why we wanted to wait till after graduation.
Past graduation.
I'm sorry.
Is it school in session beyond
Yes,
graduation?
yes it is, but the boilers are shut off probably at the beginning of May, so we don't need the boilers.
Okay.
If we need heat and it's, June 10th, then we have a problem.
Yeah, I just remember.
Besides, the windows are open, so it doesn't matter.
Don't want the deconstruction happening in the background pictures of your graduation, right?
That's what we were thinking, that, you're gonna have trucks and all this stuff
I
here, so.
wasn't making a connection to graduation, okay.
Sean, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity. Do you have any questions or concerns?
Oh, I'm just trying to think through the implications of what we're talking about, but now we need boilers.
Yes.
Got a point.
Yes, we do. Heat is good.
I do have one other question, because there's a fairly large discrepancy between the low bid and what I'll call the high bid. The high bid is literally like a 30%, 35%
Yeah,
more.
I know.
What drives the cost differential?
Quite honestly, I can't give you an answer to that. I don't know. I would say maybe it's labor. Maybe they think maybe they mark up overhead more. I did not personally sit down and review every single bid and every detail when the engineering firm did that.
Yeah.
But when you have a bid spec, everybody's bidding on apples to apples to apples.
Yeah.
So they must price it differently. So either they mark prices up more, they have higher labor costs, or I don't really have an answer. I mean, we've had that kind of discrepancy in just about everything that we've ever done. When you go out and you get 3 quotes, or you get bids on stuff, they're all over the place. And it's similar to when, I've said this before, when you buy like even textbook series, these companies throw out a price and hope that you just pay for it. And when you start to say, well, no, that's too much, it's like buying a car, you negotiate it down. But in this process, it's a sealed bid process.
But the architects reviewed all of the bids and all the
They
components?
spent 2 weeks. 2 weeks going through everything, every detail, to make sure that they covered everything that was in the bid specs.
Yeah. Okay. Then I would hope that they would know the answers to why one bid is so much more than another.
I can ask, and if I get an answer, I'll send it to you,
That'd be great.
just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I'd just like to repeat that question once. Is it variation in labor costs or materials?
I don't know the answer to that, Sean. I did not, I did review them, the design team did it. I'm not an expert in all the stuff that they're trying to do. That's why we hire engineers to do this stuff.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
It'd just be,
I'll ask.
are we like, what are they saying? But at the end of the day, if they're bidding out the same spec, the question is, what are the other organizations putting into it or adding to it?
Right. I mean, we get similar discrepancies even when we go out to bid, although we don't get competition anymore, but when we went out to bid for buses, there was a time when we had like 5 or 6 bids. They ranged from, as an example, like 300,000 to $1 million, for the same thing, so.
Get it.
So when we're coming through this, it's good to know this, and I think this is where Phil is getting, what Phil is getting at. When we take a look at the discrepancy of materials, you can say, oh, well, they're either adding on to the price of the materials, or they're pretty much in alignment with what everybody else is bidding. But when you're talking about labor, now you're talking about has the winning bid, the NB Kenny bid, have they underbid the labor, and will they start charging us change fees, additional expenses when they run into problems? Are we setting ourselves up for additional expense?
So on the labor piece, it's prevailing wage because it's a public job, so they get the wage tables from the Department of Labor, and that's what they have to pay. So the only reason that they could charge us more is if we change something in the design and that change costs them more money. Other than that, they have to honor the bid.
Understood. So that
And
that's
I
kinda where-
don't know the particular company, but I do think that sometimes guys just kind of do it on a square footage type of deal and then look for change orders in order to make money. The design doesn't have this, the design doesn't have that, so that's where my confidence in the design is strong, because we worked with this company before and they did a good job.
But normally those bids are the low bids.
Yeah, but
They're gonna change orders. That's all I'm asking. I just wanna make sure, we get into the process to what you're saying, you guys, and that's why we hire engineers, I understand, I'm just trying to understand kind of like what drives the discrepancy in the pieces that are there, because if everybody's using the same prevailing labor costs, material.
So just for what it's worth, I know it's only a small data point, but I just Googled all 8 companies real quick. And NBK has the most number of reviews on Google and highest number of stars. Most of the others have 1 or 2 reviews. They've got a dozen. And it's
Are those Yelp or Google reviews?
Google reviews.
That's basically how we choose stuff, it's based on Yelp and Google.
That's how we go to restaurants.
We're not throwing darts at
No, okay.
That's next week.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be good to know, understand, but I don't think we have to
I'll ask
relate
the
the
question.
process.
I'll ask the question.
So you need a motion to spend the money?
I need a motion to award the bid.
Need a motion to award the bid to NB Kenny Company, Inc. for the Nimoc Regional High School boiler replacement.
Second.
Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Bill Desotter, aye.
Susie Levinson, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Eric Brown, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
Motion passes, bid is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Yep.
I'm dismissed.
Yeah. All right. So Sam, if you could pull in Chris Schmidt. So Chris, our athletic director, is going to talk a little bit about esports and its expansion and a request for to set up fee in order to fund the esports. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there. I appreciate you taking a few minutes tonight and allowing me to speak on behalf of esports. Certainly with Sam there, Sam is one of our advisors, so anything that I'm not unable to answer, I'm sure that Sam will be able to. As many of you are aware, we began an esports program this fall. We did so somewhat as a pilot program. We were able to fund the advisor stipend within the budget. But beyond that, we ran it as a zero cost program, meaning everything we did was free. So the game that all kids participated in is a free game. They participated remotely, which many of the kids prefer because it's on their own systems. And there was really, like I said, outside of the advising cost, really no cost to us. One of our goals was to expand this program as we moved into the spring, to offer the students a couple of more titles that they could compete in. All in all, the program through which we work, which is called Play Versus, which is associated with the MSAA, which is the governing body on the administrative side that works with the MIAA. They offer about 6 or 7 different titles that our kids could participate in. We polled kids when we first started this program, and through working with Sam and Jamie Caparella, our other co-advisor, we are wanting to add 2 different games, League of Legends and Super Smash Brothers, which are our 2 most popular choices. Those do come with a fee. So for every seat, as they call it, there is a license to be able to participate in that. For both of those programs, it is a $65 fee per seat. So in your head, if you're thinking per student who is participating. And what we'd like to do is we would like to create what I would call a uniform or a jersey for the kids as well. So what I would like to do for the spring season is institute an $85 fee for those students who would be participating in either League of Legends or Super Smash Brothers, and then a $20 fee for those students who would be participating in Rocket League, which is that free title that we ran in the fall. There are still students who enjoy playing that, so we still want to support that, but we have had a lot of requests for the other two, and we would really like to expand this program. Beyond that, we would still work remotely as we currently are, but we are looking at ways to bring the program in-house for the future, looking at next year and beyond. So ultimately, like I said, what we're looking at is an $85 fee as a max, and then a $20 fee for those students who are participating in Rocket League.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions from the committee?
I guess the only question I had is, do the students bring their own device for these games, and this is a license, or do we provide hardware capability as well?
No, so the format through which we are running it currently is the students provide their own device. So they're working remotely from their homes. What we have to essentially, purchase the so-called license for them to be able to participate as part of our team. It's akin to the way we do things with sports. We have an institutional fee within athletics for each sport that we participate in. We pay a fee to the MIA for that sport. So it's a little bit similar in that sense.
Sure.
I could have a question too. Could students compete in multiple leagues? Or are they just restricted to one?
So, Mike, that's you, right?
Yeah.
Just making sure. So the answer is they can. I know in talking with Sam and Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Caparella, we're looking at trying to do just one for this spring, and simply just from a management standpoint. And that's what we're looking at to start, though. We may have the opportunity to expand that. If so, potentially, Mike, if that were the case, yes, then a student, if they were participating in Super Smash Brothers and League of Legends, because they do compete on different days, they would potentially have to purchase, it would be 85 plus 65.
Okay. All right, great, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, then we will need a motion to approve the $85 fee.
Make a motion to set the fee for esports at $85.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Bill Desotter, aye.
Vicky Levinson, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Kirk Brown, aye.
Don Nicholson, aye.
Okay, and motion passes with the $85 fee set for esports. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so my final topic underneath my section is in regard to Nimoc graduation date and a proposed calendar change.
Good evening, everyone. Hi there. Here tonight, on behalf of the senior class officers and advisors, in order to make the graduation date change from June 3rd, which was a Friday night, which we planned in different times, right? We were hoping for a return to healthier times. But looking at the way the health situation is, we're looking to move it to the next day, June 4th, at 10 a.m. I actually think that this is a change that when we consider the school calendar for future years, we'd like to make a permanent shift. So the Saturday morning ceremony, it's been great. We get to have a day where we confront difficult weather, but great this year, so it's not been but the ceremony's been really great outside, and allowed more people, more guests to come. It has a limited financial impact because actually we have some things that we rent inside and we don't rent outside. But they're excited to make that change, and I wanted to bring it forward for a vote. Answer any questions.
Sounds good.
Any questions?
This is the rain date would be June 5th.
So, yeah, the way it works is the rain date is the very next day, Sunday, same time. If both are rained out or weather conditions get in the way, we move to the next day at 5 p.m. So.
Sorry. Now that you've jinxed it, it's good that you have a plan. That's good. Sean, any questions?
None.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve the graduation date change.
Make a motion to change graduation date from June 3rd, 2022 to June 2022.
Second.
Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Full Disclosure, aye.
Vicky Levitt, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Eric Brown, aye.
John Nicholson, aye.
Motion passes, and the graduation date is changed to June 4th, 2022. Hopefully it'll be a sunny day.
That's all.
Excellent. All right, moving right along, on to school committee subcommittee, starting with the policy subcommittee.
So at our last meeting, we presented for first reading two policies, ACAE harassment, and FFA, a memorial commemoration policy. So ACAE was updated to include updates in state guidelines and consistent language with the MASC policy. As you can see, it was broadened in scope quite a bit from a more narrow focus on sexual harassment to harassment in general. And FFA is a new policy. We did not have a memorial commemoration policy, which is on our list of new policies since last year. So this is aligned with MASC recommended policy. Questions on these, or you can certainly look at them in more depth, but if people are comfortable with them as is, we can take a vote on them tonight.
All good?
Yeah.
Want to take a vote?
Yeah, sure.
Make
Sean,
a motion.
hold on, no, we just gotta check for Sean.
No.
Our lone wolf out there, do you need a chance to read over these policies additionally, or are you?
No, I've already read them twice now.
So I make a motion to approve the ACAB harassment policy and the FFA memorial commemoration policy.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Full Disclosure, aye.
Vicky Levitt, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Brown, aye.
Sean Nicholson, aye.
And motion passes with the approval of the two updates. Okay, let's see, we already did our superintendent search subcommittee update. Moving on to new business, we have starting a technology department budget presentation. Welcome, gentlemen. Getting a flashy high-tech presentation, I hope.
Aiming for elegance. Hey there, Sam. And Steve, get ours.
I like that.
Oh, sorry.
And if I can jump in for 1 second, I think this might be the first time that Dave has been in front of us since he successfully defended his dissertation. It's now Dr. Dave Quinn. So I just want to congratulate him. Hard work and effort and resilience and perseverance to go through the whole process, but we're really proud of him and welcome aboard.
Well, it's very kind of you to recognize that. I say that I had a lot of support from the district to make sure I got across the finish line. As many people have told me, it's not necessarily a test of intellect, but a test of will. And, I had a lot of support behind me. Thank you. But technology is the focus. We're going to aim to give you the 35,000 foot view. And then if you have questions, by all means, so, in an effort to make it quick. when we think about our mission and vision, I don't think technology has been encapsulated ubiquitous, so it's everywhere around us. Kids have access on demand and visible. So think of technology like a great umpire, like also we don't want people to have to think about it, and necessary. So all the work that we're doing, it's necessary to have the technology on hand to do the innovative, forward-thinking activities. That's the mission of our technology department, is to create those conditions here. Put it down to 5. I'll take the first 2, Joe will take the next. So big highlight is we're one-to-one district-wide, which allows students basically essentially on demand while they're in school, K to 4, access to digital learning and creation tools. And then at the secondary level, we've had for a while, on-demand access, that extends well beyond the school day. Secondly, we've been maximizing the number of free iPad apps. I think we have close to 600 in our catalog, with some really strategic investments in digital platforms that will not only just build conceptual knowledge, but also provides us with usage data to make sure that we're getting the most for our investment as well.
Apple devices coming onto the network, specifically the iPads. Of adding the elementaries into the equation now, we need a little more support in those buildings. Another thing we would also, from an operations, I just really felt that we needed to kind of focus a little more on the elementaries now that they have devices one-to-one to each kid. We didn't have that. This is just a little overview of who we are. One computer network is our, all-in-wonder. You can kind of do anything. He actually then works his way up, so. We also have Chris in the top right there, who she knows everybody, literally everyone knows every name on the books. Excellent. This is just some numbers. This one shows you about what we got. 1,000 iPads, 400 Windows desktops. Those numbers are track computer or something like that controls the boiler's data. Total 75 smartboards. That's also have 4 large venue setups, which would be for each of the cafeterias at the elementary and at the high school, middle school, the auditoriums. Sometimes Teacher MacBooks we had from two. Is the equipment that was existing in the high school and middle. That happened this summer. Chain issues towards the end, which was a little installed right before school. The last part is the ECF funded iPads. This would Dave kind of give us a.
So yeah, we're really excited for that. They have arrived on premises, so we're now in the process of going through the checkpoint. Sam and Joe met with a Apple external to sure we have our configurations set up correctly to. Devices are 8th generation iPads. They will come with a keyboard case. It's what piece of feedback we've got from a lot of students. That's really hard to type on the screen. Also 2 years worth of Apple Care, which will cover any sort of damage to the devices, which will be relief to a lot of families as well. One last thing before we move on to the next slide with grants that I think is important with the MacBooks and ties into the iPads. A lot of the offset for the first year payment of the MacBook renewal was done for residual value. So we're able to sell back the devices. And that's one of the reasons why we typically go with Macs is we typically have a little bit of residual value that helps to offset the cost of our next purchase. Grants, please. And as you know, we strive to tap into as many external sources as we possibly can to fund our programs. At this point, so we know the ECF grant not only iPads for grades 7 through 12, but we're also able to provide some laptops to some of our support staff. We also have our E-rate reimbursement, so that Wi-Fi. About 40% of that cost was paid for through federal dollars. So again, we're trying to defer the cost. And then, as I've talked about in prior meetings, we received in fiscal year 19, we're running through the end of this, our $100,000 Smart Innovation Center grant from American Student Assistance that pulls a makerspace Fab Lab in our middle school, which we're still expanding, building out. It continues to be exciting. And then we've also, which pays for durable costs and teacher training. And then we're on the precipice of bringing Project Lead the Way to the high school to have a pre-K-12 Project Lead the Way pathway. We're expecting a grant of at least $25,000 to support that piece. So as we're adding on and we're trying to create pieces, we're trying to fund it from external sources as much as we possibly can. So what does that mean for return on investment? We think of it in a couple different ways. So first of all, making our students thinking both visible and audible in ways that were possible. So for our students who may not necessarily be, show academic competency in most traditional formats, they're able to demonstrate it in a lot of ways due to our devices. So we understand their capacity there. It also enables students to develop their voice and put their work out to more global testing or videos on YouTube or other platforms, blogs, or things of that nature. So it's not just work that stays inside the classroom, it's work that expands outside the classroom, which also leads into our ability for students to connect with external audiences. Mr. Brown was a prime example of that, having our students be able to interview people who are in career fields that they're interested in. I know that Jim Gorman is another example of connecting with NASA scientists, all made possible through the technology investment that we have here. And then fourthly, there's also the interest piece. So how do we help our students about or what they're good at, or to find out what they're not necessarily interested in? Our technology, particularly through some of the offerings, things as simple as our club to the enrichments in science, doing robotics and hummingbirds. Our technology offers kids the opportunity to see if something that they're tinkering with can turn into a career or even just a hobby. And then next slide. So we also did a quick SWOT analysis just to kind of give a sense of where we are big picture wise. And I think some of our strengths is that we have a very visible, enthusiastic team. Teachers know us, administrators know us. They know they can count on us to see, and we're always receptive to feedback. In turn, I think that our staff has widespread adoption of the response to the COVID realities of last year and even this year has just been incredible in terms of teachers leading their learners. So that's a huge strength in our district. Most of the educating and student devices are less than 2 years old, so we've got a relatively new fleet. The ones that are not will be replaced shortly. And then we tend to invest in quality equipment, so we're not aiming for disposables.
Sure. Yeah. Keep up with what we can, but we don't have a formal.
The other thing too is that since we're forward facing, there's no back of the house that we can send devices to be fixed. So we're constantly interacting with the staff and the students and with vendors. So it's there's no kind of like a janitor. Pivoting over to opportunities, I think our writing grants has enhanced our ability. So now more successful. We're known to grant funders. It helps to facilitate those conversations, leads to greater success when we apply. Joe particularly has been working with our municipal partners at Upton to try to find ways for shared services. If we're doing similar projects or we have similar needs, how might we be collaborative to share the cost across the district and the municipality so we both get value. We can go into more depth if you want on that later. And then also because of our outward facing technology department, we're also connecting with people who are national experts in technology integration, bringing them into the district for teachers to have access to. So I think that's another one of our opportunities that we can do. And a lot of times it's for low or no cost. So I think that's a really big opportunity on our end. And then finally, if you want to take the threads.
Sure, get all the good stuff.
Get all the good stuff.
Doing as best as we can. Breakage, I think this is worth noting that like Sam and I and Felipe, we're all take 3 to 5 days, taking on average 3 right now. So we're, when we worry about costs of I have to say our team does a pretty good job of getting those in and out. And the last piece is just facilities. I mean, we're fortunate, 3 out of the 4 buildings are relatively new. This goes a little tougher just to work in, just because of the age of the building. Bringing in certain things like internet, power, and keep the lights on can sometimes be a little bit of a trying to keep things daily basis. I never know what I'm walking into. So A little bit about what we're thinking about going forward. Just for next year, place both setups at the same time, just because I like to keep them together as one, just makes things easier for management. The equipment is very expensive. Whether a quote that's, not to the
Thanks. So yeah, so as part of our grant and he repairs the machines or things of that nature. That's built into this budget. And we also built in 18,000 for a dozen apps, but we just want to make sure that that potential cost increase is budgeted. Jay has taught me well. We never accept the first quote. We're always working on, can we get a better deal on this? But we want to make sure it was budgeted in there in case some of our critical platforms don't have as much wiggle room as before. But also wanted to talk to you about beyond fiscal year 2023. I think we really need to have a conversation about a multi-year phased-in program for a lease for our student devices. The good news is that we bought ourselves some time with this grant to start structuring in that cost, because it is a big chunk of change. But I think we've been brainstorming different ways, and if we phase it in over multiple years, I think it might be a little bit more feasible for the district. And then Joe with the classroom hardware, it's kind of similar situation.
Yeah, like I said, this one-time cost kind of scenarios, we need to build in some kind of structure. It's going to drive that. It's going to be partially the technology planning committee. Sure, I don't want to base numbers on stuff, the existing technologies that may or may not be there in 3 or 4 years. So that's us in a nutshell. How can we be helpful? Any questions I can work with you?
So you're about to launch a technology plan? You're going to put that plan together. I realize you're pulling pieces together. As a part of that, are you also looking at all the various financial considerations? So you talk about, for example, a normal annual refresh cycle for a component of our hardware and uses that are there. I guess my point would be is, I guess, with that plan, you would share how you would propose to implement.
Yes.
Both, but from a financial perspective, like, do we look at a reserve structure right now, build this up to a point? How are we looking at it and managing it from a financial perspective? All of it.
So that plan will come before this committee before it's approved. Obviously, you'll have a chance to look at it. My hope is if at some point that members of the committee will be able to sit in on the planning process, but I understand you all have full votes as well. So if obviously the meetings to take place at different times, but if you want to check in particularly for that structure, because then again, we can write a plan, but it's ultimately up to the committee to decide if that financially meets with what the committees want to do. But we fully expect to have some sort of proposal for structure.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting that I think we need to kind of settle on what direction we're.
No, agreed, and I think it's important as you look at laying that plan out, that it's not, that you're laying all aspects of technology, the communication lines, the LAN, things like that, so you've got all of that in place as well. So we understand what we're having to do.
Agreed.
Because I agree, it shouldn't be necessarily like, it should be something that's well thought out of, you know, just like we think about, you know, oh, our oil costs are gonna be this. Oh, our maintenance of the field costs are gonna be this. Like, we should be able to think about what that looks like over the coming years.
I think it's an excellent point, particularly because we've thought of technology as that fourth utility, right? So, you're getting electricity, so how do we structure that? So I think if we can take that type of mindset towards it, I think we're better served.
I think from my side, it's also helpful, just like I say, to get it all on paper, kind of map out where we're going.
iPads have a whatever, it's 3-year life, 4-year life. MacBooks are 5 years, TVs are, you know, so you throw to the slide of all the assets that we sort of have, you start to understand what the average run rate is. Now, hopefully, maybe, you know, with some of the grants, we're a little bit ahead of the curve. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but can you start building up a little bit of reserve against that? And then it really becomes almost a flat IT cost every year versus
That's where we're going.
peaks and valleys.
Exactly, and I think we'll get to this more, but I think phasing it in is going to be critical because it's a big number, and every time we've had to do. But if we can think of this as like a 5-year phase in or a 3-year phase in, it might be a little bit more feasible.
Sure. Yeah, but your point too, I mean, we've gotten a fairly substantial grant in terms of the 7 and the 6 through 12 kind of iPad purchase and pieces like that. That gives us a level of breathing room. And so, you know, I think we look at it, we have an ability to start planning, you know, not only from an operational perspective, but from a financial perspective against it. What does that really look like?
And Jay's in this all the time. It's the greatest, you know. Usually we're pretty good about planning. You know, and we know how. We're pretty good with it. They're just stuff that we've done. This is just kind of cleaning up some of that.
Great.
No, thanks, guys. I think it's just the last comment. It's just awesome how forward-facing, student-facing the organization is, right? I mean, that's obviously a huge change over time, right? You think of IT, going to be one guy in a closet when it comes out on Friday afternoon, but it's part of the school function now, working with students and staff, and we've seen programs you guys are running. It's really great.
Nice. We appreciate your collective participation. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, Carrie, I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi, Sean.
So the sound is definitely cutting out with where Joe was sitting. It's over on the edge of the microphone pickup. It's not. Yeah, it's probably going to be better if you move the microphones. Yeah. Thank you.
It's good to have you covering for us out there.
Are you implying I should be here all the time?
I could never, ever do such a thing, Sean. Welcome, Mr. Clements. We have our Nimoc Regional High School budget presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to be here and give you an update on the Nimoc budget and where things are at and where they're headed in the future. Makes sense as we start the presentation, like anything we're talking about at Nimoc, is to start talking about our core values, our beliefs, our mission, and who we are as a school. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the highlighted budget areas, some of the return on investment that we've had, and then show you some of the anticipated costs coming up in the years to come in order to bring our vision to life. So as we start, I'd say that one of the things that I'm most excited about here at the school is that we have a really strong compass. As Sam has up over here, the vision, mission, and the goals. Nimoc knows who it is, who we want to be, and because of that, we have a compass that's going to drive us and guide us through some really uncertain times. As the district went through the strategic plan process, Nimoc was also going through a strategic planning process concurrently with student input and teacher input, parent and community members. And through that, we've come up with definition of learning, beliefs about learning, and as Sam scrolls through the slides, you're going to see they really do have a great alignment with our strategic plan and show the true character of who we are. Sam, if you could go to the next slide for me. Thanks. So if you take a look at the beliefs about learning, you'll see a real alignment with agency, deep inquiry, and authentic learning. That's at the heart of our strategic plan. There's a true alignment with that here at Nimoc. It is our compass, it's what guides us, and it's undergirded by the idea and the belief of relationships. Supporting our kids, getting to know them well, providing them with the supports and the resources they need to be successful in whatever challenges they face, but also to celebrate their individual strengths, curiosities, and interests. The definition of learning that's on the next slide is maybe the part of the strategic planning process that was the most exciting for me. I do get excited about this stuff, partly because it shows you where the rubber meets the road. We know what effective learning looks like, and we have an aspirational statement of who we want to be and where we want our school to go. We're not 100% there yet, but we're making progress every day. And so as you take a look at our school goals that we presented for this year that are on that next slide, you'll see that our focus on understanding our students, supporting our students, and engaging them really encompasses this idea of who we are. Agency, inquiry, real work that matters, with a focus on relationships. So as I ask you to kind of keep that compass in mind as I go through some of the slides that we'll talk about tonight. Moving forward, I want to point out some of the key highlights from our budget, the areas of investments that we've had. One of the aspects of the school that as you dig into the budget, you come to realize very quickly is that we're lean. And our teachers do a great job taking the funds that they have and working some magic with them. So one of my hopes tonight is to give you some of that information that shows how we're functioning in a frugal but efficient manner and allow you to ask some questions about that. You'll see 4 areas of focus. The first is vision-aligned practices. Those happen at both the micro and the macro level. So micro level, I'm talking more about what happens in the classroom. This is the magic that teachers are working every day. When you think about the science symposium in Nimoc that's coming in early February, the civics project that our social studies teachers are working on, the development of computer science, the DECA program that has inspired kids, the Spanish exchange program that has taken an amazing gem of a program and allowed our kids to apply it in the real world, and then other things like the development of legacy, the inspired learning days, our Portrait of the Learner Scholars program. When we go through departmental budgets, and we'll talk numbers a little bit, I'll show you how we're allocating our funds in order to bring those things to life. Seo Learning and Supports is the next area of focus, and for that, we're talking about a few things. One, we're talking about the PD that's needed to help teachers embed social emotional learning practices as a regular part of their work. We'll talk a little bit about the data and the resources we are providing them through things like Panorama and Thrively, or the Signs of Suicide assessment we'll be running next week, or the Amos early warning system that integrates into PowerSchool that gives us great data about the students, how they're doing, if they're struggling. And we certainly want to talk about staffing and partnerships. One of the great additions to the school this year has been the Return Support Services program, in which we repurposed the staff position of a paraprofessional to become an academic coordinator, and we brought on an adjustment counselor. And that duo, in conjunction with our school counseling department and our teachers, are working to provide support to students who have been absent from school for either medical reasons, physical or mental health reasons, that they're transitioning back to school. And I'll talk a little bit about the return of investment we received on that. And return of investment is kind of a cold way of saying the difference it's made in the lives of kids and making them feel supported and get the help they need to be successful. And the last one there is deeper learning. This has been a focus of Nimoc for a long time, but we'll talk about the partnerships we developed, things like Mastery Transcript, the NCSSS, National Consortium of Secondary STEM Schools, Kaleidoscope Collective, our PD, and how we're integrating that, and then most importantly of that category, the Community Career and Innovations Coordinator, the position that was brought to Nimoc with the Forward 15 override that has provided so much support in bringing our mission to life. So on the next slide, as we move quickly here, you'll see some of the return of investments that we've had. And the first one on that bulleted list is the increase in authentic learning experiences. So as we get there, this is speaking primarily of the work led by our Community Career and Innovations Coordinator, Leanne McClavick. And so when you think of Inspired Learning Days, in which all of our kids are taking their curiosities, using them in a school-wide brainstorm to develop programs that help them explore the things they're interested and curious or passionate about. Our Legacy program, which is a new model of a course in which students are taking their inquiry, they're given the standards, and they're developing partnerships with community members in order to design a new kind of learning that they are really in charge of. You think of our community partnerships, which we are building this year, you know, from the school goals, we have a target of 50 community partnerships. So those partners will come in to either judge student work or shadow, agree to have a student shadow them, provide internships, be a judge in a showcase of learning. And then you look to also at the work that's being done through the Career Community Innovations Coordinator for the Portrait of the Learner Scholars. If it is directly tied to the strategic plan, chances are Leanne McClavick has her hand in the work. And we saw that position as a Swiss Army knife. We also saw, in which could do many different things really, really well according to the need of the student or the teacher. But now we recognize too, we want to scale that. And that means having more than one person in charge of this work moving forward. But it's been a huge support. I don't know that we would have been able to bring these programs into the school without that structural staffing piece to go along with it. When you see the next one, Advanced Placement, Enrollment, and Achievement, this speaks specifically to the MIE partnership. That's Mass Insight Education. That's a partnership of about $13,000 to $17,000 a year that we began in 2011, 2012. So that was my first year as principal, and at that time, Nimoc had 6 AP courses. We now have 16. We've also seen, so that's 155% increase in the number of exams we're giving as a result of those courses being increased. We've also seen the number of upperclassmen who are taking AP courses go from 42% to 65% in that time period. And all the while that we're offering more rigorous courses to more students in more areas, we've also seen our achievement increase from 75% qualifying scores to 77% scores. So that partnership with Mass Insight gets our teachers training. If they're brand new, it's summer training. All of them get training in October. It also connects them to experts in the field who can provide resources, and our students get Saturday sessions. So we get a big bang for our buck in that, and we've also been able to see that this was one of the key aspects of kind of changing the culture of our school. You know, after some difficult budget times in 2011, we saw an exodus of students leaving this district and thinking of Nimoc as maybe not the best option. The restabilization of our AP program played a huge role in building community confidence and providing the classes that students were excited about and that they wanted to be a part of. And we've seen enrollment increase, excitement increase, and investment increase as a result of that partnership. We've seen many more electives in which we've dropped previous courses and brought in some new ones. So in science, we brought in biotechnology, engineering solutions for disease. We've brought back creative writing in the English department. Impact and activism is new this year. Computer science principles is new in the math department, and we brought back statistics. So we're constantly revamping and revising. In a moment, I'm going to show you the departmental budgets, and you're going to see how we've been able to do that on a dime. So although there are new courses, we're doing it in a way that is fiscally responsible. But at the same time, we're not expanding our program studies. We're removing some courses and replacing them with others. We only have so many teachers who can teach finite numbers of sections. From there, I'm going to talk a little bit about the data and staffing to support SEL. So I mentioned the surveys we have in place and the tools we have in place. And I mentioned return support services. So to give you a sense of the work that happens through RSS, it provides students with clinical care that traditionally we just did not provide here at Regional High School. We would connect them to outside services or perhaps find a partner school that we could work with that would provide what the students needed. But we're now providing clinical care. We're coordinating their academics in a different setting. We're also engaging the families in a meaningful way to help the families access support. And we're coordinating the care outside of our school with care providers. This year, we've had 14 students who have accessed RSS in some way, shape, or form. Over 80% of our teachers have a student who has accessed RSS. So not only is it providing a go-to person for the students, services and clinical support that we didn't have before, but it's also organizing the academic work for the kids in a way that they didn't have before. And that, additionally, the primary support of this is that it helps the students. It also helps the teachers now, that they have a resource here in school who can take a student who has a higher level of need and guide them through that process so they're getting support. It's been fantastic to see. We're going to talk about efficiencies and how we've been able to do that when we get to an upcoming slide. And the last one there is a powerful network of partners. This includes the Mastery Transcript Consortium. It includes the National Consortium of Secondary STEM Schools, of which Nimoc is one of about 100 schools across the country. The BRIGHT program, which has been holding our hand and working with us as we build return support services, which comes at a cost of about $3,200 per year in order to provide support, resources, coaching. And then MIE, which I said goes from about $13,000 to $17,000 a year. On top of that, too, is the Blackstone Valley Education Foundation, which is about $5,000. So you get through this the support of people who have been there before, people who can offer you coaching. Not every group is like MUF that doesn't have dues associated with it, they just give. But other groups, in order to have that partnership, there usually are some sort of dues. Mastery in particular is going to be, the Mastery Consortium is going to be particularly important for us as we pilot it for the first year, not only in providing us the support and coaching, but also an actual transcript, a tool that we can implement here. So those are some of the returns on investments that we've seen. I want to talk a little bit, same as we move forward to the next slides, about how we stay focused on the strategic plan while also doing it responsibility with budgeting. The first is limited department expenses. So across all of our academic departments, we average $3,400 total for the year. That's for every student who takes a course of those departments. If you look, we have 2 departments that have higher budgets than others. Our science department has a budget of $13,140. That's because chemicals, frogs, biotech equipment, maintenance on microscopes, all cost money, and that makes sense. The lab experience costs money, so we expect it to be a little bit higher, and they still operate at a very frugal figure. Then you look at the art department. Art department, as you know, one of the backbones of our school, embedded in the culture. Paint costs money, supplies cost money, paper costs money. That's $7,700. So if you look at the remaining budgets that we have, they average $1,300 a piece for all the departments, for all the classes. That's textbooks aside, take textbooks out of it. In the business world, that's a couple of nights on a business trip at a hotel, a few business dinners out. For us, I think you can't even take a grade level on buses for that amount. So it speaks to the creativity of our teachers in finding solutions that are fiscally sound while also working really hard to bring a vision to life. Next one here, we have teacher design curriculum. Teachers have been open-minded in recognizing that textbooks are not always the solution. History department alone has saved about $30,000 by moving to History Alive and primary source documents in place of a traditional history textbook, which I think for many schools can be confused with the curriculum. So by being more thoughtful, by choosing the right resources, they're able to create more meaningful learning experiences and also do it on a dime. We also have not put forward we get the life we can out of the textbooks. So for instance, this year I know for FY23, we had a request of some textbooks that we think we can get another year of life out of, saving $13,000 on the budget for FY23, because we're really being discerning about when we approve a textbook. And we're while staying in line, especially with the AP guidelines, which have a 10-year life on the audit agreement, that you have to have resources that are up to date. We've had a para-supported media center for the last 3 years, so we haven't had a media center specialist. We're excited that that's in the budget, and we know that's going to be something that really helps us to bring our vision to life. The process to revision the media center is beginning this month. We're excited to keep you updated on that. And I want to point out the reductions in staff that we've had over the course of the past 5 years. Some of these are compounding. You can see $55,000 salaries. It's actually low if you think about who we had in staff. But that first one, the history position, in order to bring on return support services this year, it was not an add to our staff. We did not rehire a teacher in the history department. So by not rehiring that teacher, we were able to take the same funding and allocate it to an adjustment counselor. We believed that it was important enough to make that adjustment, but it's not a new person. And if you look over the course of years, the history department is not alone. For about 5 years without a tech teacher, 5 years without an English teacher. And that comes at a cost of particularly electives. And we'll talk about this when we get to one of the weaknesses that we see, potential weaknesses we see in the school. So as Sam moves ahead to the next slides, I'm gonna walk you over to the SWOT analysis. I could go on for days about strengths, especially the people in this place. I'm gonna hold off on that. Some of the highlights I pointed out at the beginning of the presentation show you what some of our strengths are, but I do want to just highlight again our staff, their creativity, their dedication. There is no resource more important than the people you have working with your students every day. When you shift over to the weaknesses section, the technology and humanities electives are for sure something that we're looking, that we would love to see grow. We don't have a help desk course. We don't have any tech offerings. We're being creative about adding computer science and math department, and great energy and excitement around that. But years ago, we had some of these tech offerings, and our kids are missing them. We'd love to see them come back. In the humanities, just last year, before we did not provide funding for the retired history teacher, we had courses that were proposed about American politics. We had courses about the rise of the city. There were a range of history electives that students signed up for in the spring, excited to take, that we were not able to because we simply don't have the staffing. So that's an area we'd love to see improve upon. When we're not adding the electives because we're already finding that we're busting at the seams in some of our sections, especially in the core areas that can be a challenge. So we're conscious of class sizes. And then on the weaknesses, curriculum and instructional leadership. And what we mean here is that vetted jobs that have in their day-to-day responsibilities the opportunity to lead data review, curriculum review, teacher supervision and evaluation. Schools often have teacher leadership positions as part of their budget. We have great department chairs. They're talented, they're dedicated, they know their stuff, they work hard, but they have full teaching loads. And so any leadership work that happens on top of a full teaching load. And teaching, we know, isn't a 40-hour job a week. There's a lot more than that they're putting in. With just 2 administrators, it can become a challenge in that most of the leadership work gets filtered through the administrators, and we'd love to see opportunity for our teachers to be able to take the lead. When we look at opportunities abound. Dave Quinn has done a phenomenal job helping us with DESI's innovation pathways and helping us to get on the track to apply for that. The innovation pathways will allow us to have courses here at Nimoc that have a direct connection to the real world and I'm giving the short version, and with a culminating experience in an internship where students are applying it in the real world. He's taken the initial steps to get that off the ground, including earning a grant from the Blackstone Valley Education Foundation for $5,000 for planning. That, combined with our focus on Project Lead the Way, which I'll mention in our upcoming budget needs, provides us with a real scalable model how to move forward to build the Nimoc of the future. Community partnerships, which is one of the reasons why it's our school goal. We have an awesome, dedicated community, and we see great potential to bring those partners into our school and help them work with our kids. We've received a lot more access to SEL data, but we're interested now in formalizing the use of that data and making sure that, especially as we build our multi-tiered system of services, we have a 9 through 12, pre-K through 12 understanding of how that data will support us. And then we see an opportunity too for collaboration across MURSD. So many talented teachers and leaders in this district, and we want to make sure that that work we're doing here and that we're excited about matches up with the work they're doing that they're excited about. Threats to us, this could really be that one first single bullet if we wanted it to, but the threats about the uncertainty of the budget, I think, are the most challenging one, and I'll run through them quickly with you. Staffing is first and foremost. It's on the list in order of priority, in that if you gave me no other job in my entire job responsibility than hiring talent, you'd probably be pretty happy with my job performance. There's nothing more important than bringing in highly qualified, dedicated, skilled teachers. But when they're worried about their position being cut, or there's a sense of uncertainty, or they see their colleagues going through challenges, it can provide situations that are really challenging, in which people will either leave, question whether this is the right home for them. Beyond that, really highly functioning districts are hiring in April and May. They know their retirements are going to be filled. They have a sense of the positions that align with their vision, and they're getting those candidates who are chomping at the bit, interviewing first out the gates, and are super talented. When you're hiring in July and August, it provides some inherent challenges. Now, we've been fortunate because we've had some July and August hires who are phenomenal and talented, but it does feel a little bit like a game of chance. It feels like you're finding the diamond in the rough as opposed to finding the person who stands out from the other group of candidates. Enrollment, the class of 2017, I think, had a graduating class of 121. And that class, while they were at Misco, had well over 200 students. So if by chance the finances of the uncertainty about the budget begins to, as it did in 2010, 2011, impact the quality of programming, it will also impact the confidence in the community. And I think that will show itself in the numbers of the students who are coming here. The resources, we're talking about some pretty aspirational things, and that requires doing things a little bit differently, getting access to curriculum materials, data sets, partnerships that are going to help us enable the changes, and then the culture as well. Nimoc's full of positive people who like being here every day, and when you're feeling the weight of challenges and uncertainty, it can have a negative impact on that. Beyond that, I'd say limited funding beyond fixed cost. The $13,000 to $17,000 I mentioned on Mass Insight Education is really the one thing in our budget outside of our departmental costs that we feel we have some flexibility with. So that when we're looking to take on new partnerships or a new endeavor, we often find ourselves saying, do we need to let Mass Insight go in order to make this thing happen? So not having the funding there can prevent us from sort of taking some steps that we think are important to move our school forward. Sam, you're doing a great job sticking with me. We'll go to the next one as we take a look at investment requests. Super excited about the request in the budget this year for our computer science math teacher. Dave Quinn, working in partnership with Amy Gilchrist and math teachers, are bringing Project Lead the Way, as you'll see, to Nimoc. It's building off the computer science principles course that's currently here. There's a great deal of excitement, a great deal of practical application of this. And we see the potential of bringing both the innovation pathway and the Project Lead the Way curriculum to life. This is a scalable model for not only the math department, but for science, for English. I think what we're going to find here is that this is going to provide teachers with a gateway to say, okay, how do I take the learning that happens in the classroom and bring it to a community partner, bring it to a real life setting? It's cost of an educator, the $23,000 for Project Lead the Way, we expect to be fully funded through a grant this year, which we're excited about, which makes it budget neutral, but it will have some cost in the future. And then virtual learning opportunities, $5,000 for VHS. Through the pandemic, we have found that our kids are accessing VHS more and more, and that it's working for them. And we want to try and support that. So that means that down the line, beyond the 1 year, the 2, 3, 5 year vision, we do need some more staffing, especially to impact the electives. The first 3 positions are aligned with electives. One is a little bit higher in cost because they're a little harder to find. And so you sometimes find yourself paying for experience and paying for a veteran coming from another district. We see that as a gateway to offering the electives that will be really important for our students. And then the Project Lead the Way, innovation pathway, internship experiences, we anticipate $10,000 a year recurring costs beyond the initial cost that will be funded through the grant. And then the facility needs. I know that Jane Ken presented a couple of weeks ago on facility needs, but at 25 years old, we're now beginning to feel that age. Every chair, every table, every piece of furniture in the school is 25 years old. We've been frugal. We've got a relationship with a company, a warehouse that cleans out office buildings. And so when we needed new desk chairs, we worked with them and took gently used, in most cases, chairs to replace the ones that were ripped or falling apart or had broken wheels. So a chair that, I Googled it once, a chair that cost $700 in industry, we got for $30. And we were able to provide that resource. Can't go to the warehouse for carpet, can't go to the warehouse for a roof. And so, and we also have talked about athletic facilities and the age that they're feeling. I know it falls in the facilities category, but it does have a direct impact on teaching and learning here, so I mentioned it there. Overall, as I get to the final thoughts here, I would say that I am so excited about the school. I'm a lifer for a reason, and the community support is a huge, huge part of that. We have a school community that understands our vision, that is behind us, has been fully supportive. At the same time, we have some budgetary needs. So I'm excited to be able to be here tonight to talk about what those needs are, fill in the blanks a little bit, and obviously available not only tonight, but anytime moving forward, not only for all of you, but anyone who might be listening and watching this in the future, to talk about our budget and talk about creative solutions to you. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Any questions from our board? Sean, I don't want to forget you either.
Yeah, I guess I have one question, John. When you were talking about the adjustments you had to make to get the adjustment counselors, could you describe a little bit more detail in about that? So are you saying that you had to not hire various teaching positions, and now those are becoming necessary because of class size increases? Do you understand where my dynamic is here?
I do, yes. You've got it, John, yes. So we had a social studies teacher retire last year. The social studies department was expecting filling that position. Instead, we're now down to 5 social studies teachers. And the reason we made the reduction was because we saw the real need for the adjustment counselor that connects with the return support services program. So forced to make a tough decision, but we opted to go away from the history electives and the class size in history to support the health needs of our kids and the learning needs of our kids in another area.
Okay, I understand.
Sure.
Can you go back to the investments in that? How will this adjust or impact our class sizes?
So for every teacher, think of 5 additional sections. That's essentially the challenge that our department chairs get when we look at student enrollment every spring. We look at the number of students who have requested a particular course, and then we look at the number of sections we have available, and then we allocate staff accordingly. And sometimes if a class size is too high, particularly if you're headed to the high 20s or the low 30s, you focus on your core areas. So in a social studies area, you're going to focus on US 1 and US 2 or WEX, because those are your core classes. And the electives are more likely to not run in order to make sure the class sizes stay low in the core areas.
So what did we lose last year going into this year, this reduction in terms of those core areas of English history?
Sure, so the English cut's been in place now for 5 years. So that means that we brought back creative writing, but that's the only elective that exists in the English department, which we'd love to see that grow. There are so many different courses they would love to run, and I know they've advocated for it, especially seeing the investment our district's made in STEM. We want to make sure that it's complementary. In the history department, it means that we did not run US Government, Power, and Politics, which was a new course, which when we looked at signups, we had about 30 signups for that. It means that we did not run The Rise of the City, which had 31 signups for it. So these were new courses that were based on student feedback of the kinds of things kids were interested in that we put into the budget. And what it does mean is that the class sizes have gone up. I don't have those directly in front of me right now, but 5 sections for all of our social studies, the numbers are big.
Do we have the upcoming in the next 3 to 5 years, curriculum, all the material needs at the high school level that will be fairly large costs? I mean, have we been able to map all of that out?
So yes, as far as Maureen last year led some of our departments through a curriculum review cycle. I don't want to speak for you. And that's an ongoing process that's taking place with different departments on a schedule, so you stagger it over the course of years. Part of that work is visioning, part of that work is anticipation of materials and supplies. As part of that too, there's also a review of textbooks, so you're making sure you're finding the ones not only that fiscally fit the budget, but meet all the other needs of the school. And everything is, we're trying to get everything on a cycle right now so that we don't have, as we have in some years past, especially the digital textbooks, which are on a 6-year lease, have multiple 6-year leases pop up at the same time, which can really impact a single budget season. So holding off, being creative as much as we can to space it out, and Jay's a great support with us and working with the vendors in order to spread the cost out over years if we can.
In most cases,
Yeah, I can't hear any of that.
so it's more unique. If we have, AP is one thing that's in the list, so they have to stay within the years for approved textbooks, but then that's just a targeted group of texts. So it's not as large of a purchase that you might have at K through 4.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, I know you've done some of that. It would be great to kind of maybe see more of that holistically across the district level, kind of what those larger potential upcoming programs or things like that are that we need to look at and evaluate. I know we had a number that kind of came into the budget for this year or last year. I know
We just started science at the middle school this year,
Yep.
so they've begun their cycle. Math this year, they just began their cycle, which is a little bit longer. And our ELA was the year before, so we've tried for the most part to get it in a rotating cycle at the younger grades. So we have that information, and Jay and I, and Cheryl, we meet to see what's coming up, but nothing is immediate on large scale for this coming year.
Okay. Great.
Actually, I have a question too. So the virtual learning opportunities, does that refer to just VHS or would it be additional opportunities?
It refers primarily to VHS. However, we have found some students who are using other vendors, depending upon what their needs are. And that's coming mostly out of pandemic needs, Michael, but yeah, it does refer mostly to VHS.
So I'm in a VHS class myself. So what would the $5,000 do, or how would it impact?
It's the number of seats essentially, in that we went way over what we anticipated in seats coming out of last year's challenging budget cycle because we weren't able to get necessarily everybody into the classes that were their first choice. And especially when you reach senior year, you've had a lot more singletons in your schedule. So you're looking to meet the students' needs with a course that's interesting to them. And that sometimes means working with the vendor. We've also found we're getting good reports that students are enjoying it. They feel like it's a prep for college. The virtual learning experience, something they got comfort with during the pandemic. But we see a wide range of VHS classes that we can't offer here as part of our regular.
I've actually been asked about virtual learning myself. Do you know how many students are currently enrolled in VHS or other virtual learning opportunities, and how do you see that evolving over the next few years?
Second part, how do I see it evolving?
How do you see the numbers changing over the next few years?
Sure. I think right now, I think this year we are at, Jay, help me out, I'm gonna say we're around 60 seats for the entire school year. So an AP course counts as 2 seats because it runs for the full year. Most of their courses are semesterized. So 60 seats is more than we've ever had before. Part of that is the result of the timing of the schedule. Remember, we were building it in the third week of August last year. But I do feel like people are comfortable with the async aspect of it, that provides a little more freedom during the school day. So we budgeted to increase to about where we are this year for next, and I would expect it to kind of stabilize around there.
John, going back to some of your statistics on reductions and savings, when you mentioned the teacher designed curriculums with the savings on textbooks,
Yes.
is that largely a conscious choice to move away from textbooks towards more authentic learning, or is that more of a budget saving? Is that driven more by savings?
Sure, it's teacher driven rather than budget driven. There are some benefits to having the textbook, absolutely, but the teachers have found they didn't put that request forward. They were happier with the resources they were using. They're happy with the History Alive, and they really worked closely with each other in order to design the programming. So it wasn't that we came forward and said, we don't have money for textbooks. It was the opposite. They came to us and said that's what they wanted to do. Good question. Sorry, I didn't clarify that.
No, I think those are the kinds of things that are important for the community here too, especially after a lot of feedback going through these budgetary processes, hearing those kinds of details, the fact that you're getting an office chair for $30 used. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we want to make sure the community is hearing, that we are definitely looking for savings and efficiencies, and understanding what's driving those is important.
No, I mean, I was gonna say something similar, right, is that the amount that the school has added in the last 2 years, right, it's saying do more with less, but that's what you guys are doing, right? Because the head counts you represented on slide 9, and a lot of these went away 5 years ago, and now you're saying, hey, listen, we really want to bring them back. It's not like it's incremental adds, if I'm understanding correctly, that happened along the way. It's almost getting back to 2017, 2018 staffing to get those, a real similar course curriculum availability.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Do we have, I don't maybe know the answer yet, but do we have an anticipated, I guess let me ask the question, if we look at the distribution of teachers that you have right now, in the next 2 to 3 years, do you have a large distribution of teachers that are coming up upon retirement? Or if you kind of look at tenure, you say, hey, we're kind of more in the middle career for the majority of professionals?
Vast majority are middle of the career. We have very few people who are headed to retirement. I would say even in the next 10 years or so. Think of veteran staff members. This is my 23rd year in the district, if you believe it. I can believe it. I think the folks who are a little above me in seniority have been here for 27 years, maybe 28 years, around that average area, and they're our most senior folks. We have a lot of folks who are in there, that 8 to 14 year range.
Right.
So staff's going to be here, and it's a strength of the school, absolutely.
It is. It's a strength, and also, but it doesn't allow you to do that, 2 retirements for 3 hires, right? Because
Yes,
it's,
absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Sean, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Appreciate the time, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Okay, so other matters not anticipated by the committee within the last 48 hours. I think we already addressed the most pressing of those. We have no correspondence to review. Looking at future agenda items, we have departmental and school budget presentations continuing over our next several committee meetings, and we also have the superintendent goals that we'll be reviewing soon. Unless anyone else has some business that we need to address, take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Make motion to adjourn.
Roll call.
Both Center, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Kirk Brown, aye.
John Nicholson, aye.
All right, and we are adjourned at 9:11 p.m.